Welcome to Final Cut Pro and the terabyte hard drive of B-roll that I have shot over the course of building a custom Walnut Nightstand. So let's get into it. These days I typically model most projects in 3D on my iPad. So you can see the clipboard there where I printed out the design. And this is sort of the early stages of bringing the rough lumber into the shop, essentially getting all four sides as square as possible so that you can glue up a nice flat blank. So this is part of that roughing down process. This took me a couple of years to learn that the better you do this step, the better your final end result will be. And again, I'm not going to show, well, I didn't film everything because it takes a lot of time and effort. So I shot what I thought would be the most interesting for you to watch and get a sense of the whole process, but at the same time, not the boring stuff. So yeah, this is that clamping stage, which you could fuck up any number of ways, whether it was on the jointer or, you know, just a little deviation here and there. It'll get some gaps and fuck up the top. But luckily that one came out all right. So this is where the tech enters the picture. A lot of the precision parts we cut on the CNC router. So essentially it's this other component. In the modern age of woodworking, the more you can automate in terms of doing the precision cuts and the dimensioning, it makes the handwork much more predictable and everything just goes together smoothly. So it's a tool like any, and it introduces a whole other set of issues, obstacles, learning curves. But yeah, it helps immensely with this component here, which is the sort of layout diagram for the wireless chargers. The CNC is especially good for positioning and centering critical locations. So you can see here there's a cutout that is not symmetrical, but there is a center point that needs to be lined up from the bottom side of the top surface. And the easiest way for me to do that was to draw it on my iPad, my 3D modeling software, and just make sure that all the dimensions are laid out in CAD, and then the machine cuts it where it needs to go. So yeah. Okay, so here are the rough parts that are fresh off of the CNC process. I typically measure everything against the drawings after it's cut. And yeah, just trying to get everything, let's see, I'll pause it right here. Taking the flat parts and double checking them, making sure that they match what I drew, what the design calls for. So this is kind of a big jump between these two clips here, but it's essentially just a lot of the same process of lightly sanding down the parts and then making sure the dimensions match, dry fitting them, And then here you can see I've done the final, or one of the final glue ups. So sides, top, shelf. You see a lot of the clamps here, just keep everything square. Again, this is another part that is all too easily fucked up. So double check every dimension and right angle, if they are indeed right angles. Nightstand nearly completed, and right there actually you can see right there you can see the wood is already starting to sort of cup and bow a little bit. That's wood. Even if you follow best practices, it still happens, but luckily you can sort of make that disappear a little bit with extra glue and clamping. Yep. And then actually here you can see the characteristics of the rough lumber, or just raw wood in general. You can see there's a knot here, and there was a knot here that blew out. It's just a slight gap here. I mean, that's the character, you know. That was once a small tree branch where a squirrel was sitting on eating a nut. Yeah, I hope you're thoroughly bored at this point, because there's just more of this. And this is why I typically film 10x or 100x of what I need, and inevitably you have a lot of repetitive, boring stuff, and then you pull out 3 seconds at a time or 10 seconds at a time and compile a nice flashy edit for Instagram or wherever. Yep, dry fitting parts on the door, drawer face there. Yes, so this is the unique part about this design. I went ahead and incorporated the angled dowel joints. So the glue is as strong or stronger than the wood. So, you know, in theory, that joint is perfectly strong for this application. It's just a nightstand. It's not going to have any loads on the top surface. But you can add reinforcement. So I chose this dowel reinforcement. Gets glue. It, you know, it adds a little bit of an aesthetic flair to it. And walnut dowels, the grain kind of goes in the opposite direction, so it's a little bit more contrasty. So here we go with the pull saw. This one's very thin, so the technique is tricky to do perfectly each time, but there you go. That is sort of the contrast, and just, you know, it's reinforcing the whole box, the whole structure, but I think it looks nice. So yeah. removing the rest of those. And yes. Tools. And the bow ties. So these are obviously, when I mentioned earlier, the centering process that the CNC helps with. This is the center point on the top that needs to align with the pocket underneath, and that's where it really helps because, you know, there's two pockets kind of boring into the same location, and the depth in the middle, you sort of have to just double check and make sure you don't blow through. But yeah, these are purely decorative, and they designate the center point of the wireless charger. And these are African Paduke. So it's that bright orange wood that will get really dark as it's exposed to sunlight, or I guess UV in general. So ideally you kind of keep it out of direct sunlight. And it's funny because Paduke, the super bright colored wood, gets brown and dark with age, and walnut will actually bleach with age. So, you know, nothing lasts. They both go in opposite directions, and the colors unfortunately do not get better with time. So avoid UV exposure if possible. More of the same. Just get enough glue in there. Make sure it fits the gap. Yeah, it left it proud, so it sticks up a little bit, just to be sure that there's no chance of it being undersized and have a recessed area. I ended up just sanding it flush with the top surface. Alright, there we go. That is a completed box. This is structurally finished. Yeah, onto everybody's favorite part is the sanding. This thing takes many passes, orbital, hand, a little bit of chisel work. Really just getting everything as smooth as possible and everything to match, and trying to not leave as rough, try and leave as smooth a surface as possible. That's the goal. That will still take finish, because there is such a thing as too smooth, and then your finish won't penetrate the wood, and that can lead to issues too. So yeah, this is the majority of the stuff that I did not film, because sanding, it's not fun to watch. There's the drawer face without the pull. Here's the, yes, we're cutting ahead to the finish process, everybody's favorite. Osmo is great. It's a wipe-on hard wax and oil combo. So it's got a little bit of like a VOC component, which helps to bond it to the wood and cure it. But it is a natural product, and it is technically food safe when it's dried. So it's just a nice natural product that is easily you can easily reapply this stuff as needed. So down the line, if you get a little chip or a scratch or something, you can always just sand a local area and wipe on a little extra of this, and it's just a nice finish that's non-destructive. Yep, so this is after all the sanding stages. The filling, the resanding, the hand sanding. Sort of just getting it all prepped to take the finish. Shake well. And I do shoot, I pull focus manually on my camera, so that's why when there's only one operator, you sort of have to set your focal plane and live with it. And that's just a style thing. Personal preference, I like using manual cinema style camera lenses. Everything's manual, there's no auto anything, so it's manual focus, manual iris control. Anyway, that is a nylon scuffing pad. It's nylon so that it doesn't scratch the wood. Essentially, it has enough grit to it so that it can like push the oil into the grain in the surface of all the wood. So you sort of buff it in there in a really thin coating, and then you can really see those dowel joints start to come out. The edge grain and end grain takes more coats. Well, sorry, the end grain takes the most coats. You're sort of just pouring this oil into a sponge. But everywhere else that it has that final hand sand just as smooth as can be. Especially the Padauk. It's kind of cool seeing the Padauk pop through against the walnut. So this is right after applying the coat, and then it gets wiped down with paper towels. So you would know, normally you wouldn't leave this Osmo sitting on top like that. This was just so I could show sort of how that top layer before I wiped it all off with paper towels, because the ideal way to apply that is a couple of coats as thin as possible. You can already see the sheen. It's kind of a matte, semi-matte sheen come through. Yeah, fantastic. Yep. Repetitive shot. I mean, this really is the dilemma, right? Is I end up at this point after most projects with half an hour of clips, a terabyte of stuff, and I'm like, well, it'd be a damn shame to throw it out, but really it's not all of it's interesting, so some choices have to be made. Oh yeah, this was a clip from before. Yeah, so part of the dilemma then is, okay, what do I publish and what do I do with the rest of the stuff? So that is my goal with this sort of behind the scenes podcast, where I can show all this stuff and hopefully it's not too boring and gives you an idea of the extra stuff that never sees the light of day. So on to the wireless charging setup from Q Labs. These are pretty cool little systems. They are designed to charge through thick surfaces. So their original design was meant to go like on the underside of a desk that you like already have. And it's wireless charging is pretty tricky as the back of your phone gets further away from the magnetic coil, the less effective and the less efficient it is. So it's sort of that's why Apple's MagSafe products like magnetically snap on, because you want as tight a fit as possible, and you also want to align it as closely to dead center as possible. So again, wireless charging is pretty inefficient, but these chargers are designed specifically to, like, the optimal charging point is set a lot higher to go through that top surface. And so that's why they're recessed sort of in the wood like that, just to give you the most amount of flexibility for like phone thickness or case thickness. And what I liked about these is that they have all of the power safety features of, like, you know, undercurrent, overcurrent, but they also have heat sinks underneath them, which is very important, especially in a wood, because wood insulates so well. The thermal conductivity is so low, like you won't be able to clear heat that well. So the fact that these have heat sinks is a major plus. Yep, so after those are attached, they get daisy chained together, and then there's just one outlet, one plug that goes to your wall outlet. Yeah, so it's a nice dual charging system, a little his and hers maybe. There you go. That concludes the wood portion. So the metal work. I built a steel base for this particular unit. Most people do wood on wood, just a style. I like, I mean, this is what I was taught, this is what I grew up learning, and this is influenced heavily from the design system developed by my dad. He's a veteran. He's developed quite a few systems for building furniture, and I have merely adopted them and put them to use as best as I can. So the steel gets cut and mitered and prepped for welding. So it's all TIG welded here. TIG welding is ideal for tight tolerance fittings and mild steel like this in this application. I mean, there's a million ways you can skin a cat, but again, this is just what I have available and what I know. So here's the steel frame. Riveting. It does have levelers at the bottom. And this is just that part of drilling the holes in the bottom to put the inserts for the levelers. Kind of have to do this before the final parts get welded. Just a little trapezoid. Trying to make it a little bit interesting, but not too distracting. And then this is after the black powder coat. And here we are with the reveal. Here we go. This is the completed Bolt nightstand with dual wireless charging. So you can see they're pretty minimal. They tuck up quite nicely, and the bow ties on the top indicate where the center point is where you set your phone. Yep, single drawer. So typically we would order drawer boxes custom, and the company that makes them in an affordable way would ship them to us. But that company is kind of gone under or something, so yeah, so we have to start making the drawer boxes in-house, which is great because it's very hard to make a square drawer box one at a time. But this unit got one, and yes, here we go. Testing it out. Yep. Cool. Not much else to say at this point. It's a done deal. I am very happy with the final product. If you are interested in something like this, the price point can vary based on overall dimension and wood species. But this unit would probably retail around $15.50. You could obviously go for one wireless charger and be a different price, but yeah. Okay, cool. Here's second phone. They both charge at once. Yeah, there we go. Everybody's happy. All right, well, that's it for today's podcast. Take care.